What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Anti-Gravity Group podcast. My name is Braden Carlson.
My name is Taylor Jesse.
And my name is Shane, or as you might know me, Postart.
And today we are talking level 1 certifications, but not just level 1 certifications. We are talking doing it for $100 all in, including the motor and the rocket. I do have to say, though, I excluded things like hazmat shipping and shipping in general because come on, we're just playing it too fast and loose at that point. That's not possible in this day and age, basically, unless you're going fully scratch built, which maybe one of these guys did that recommendation. But yeah, so we each have brought a rocket and a motor to the table. That will be our recommendation for a level 1 certification for $100 or less. And now, initially, I had planned on doing $150 or less, including the cost of joining NAR or Tripoli to get your certification. That's $70, and that basically leaves you with $80, which almost actually is impossible considering how 29mm H motor is like $35 on the low end now. So, does anybody want to go first?
I can.
All right, do it up.
I tried to be realistic with it, because I don't know, especially these days, at least at Tripoli launches, it seems like there's a lot of people jumping straight in without any or very much model rocket experience, or obviously maybe it would be a little bit different if you did a real slow, like flew a bunch of mid power and stuff and then you decide I'm going to get my level 1, that type of thing, because then it's like maybe you have a lot more advanced scratch building skills. I was sort of thinking like, hey, these rockets are cool and I want to fly big rockets, so this is level 1. So I didn't want to do like a reload, because what if I feel like the average person I see these days at a launch that's getting their level 1, I feel like most of them are single-use motors because they're available now. If it were 10 years ago when there wasn't single-use motors, I feel like it was much more common to be like, hey, can I borrow your 29-180 case so I can fly an H128 and you can help me load it? But now, if like they're going to ask someone for advice, so it'd be like, hey, I'm trying to do my level 1. What should I do? And then the vendor's like, use this. So
I feel like that does come up a lot, and it's almost to the point now where like when I recommend to people like asking to borrow hardware, it's like unheard of. They're like, what? But that's not mine.
Yeah, people like, and even honestly, I mean, unless it's someone I really know, I mean, if someone's like, hey, can I borrow a case to do level 1, I'd probably be like, you can just get a single-use motor.
Right.
Like, I would do it too, because there's not really a good reason not to. The price isn't that much different. If someone wanted to borrow a case,
29mm scale.
Yeah, if it was like level 3 or something, or like a
I'm not going to loan somebody my $100 case, but if they want to borrow my $600 75mm case, then we'll talk.
Yeah, like Matt.
Yeah.
Who still hasn't paid me back, which
we'll mark it down
up forever.
There's an X on the calendar for every day that Matt has not replaced Taylor's 3840 case. And we're going to keep hearing about it.
I love how every time he acts like, what? I haven't paid you for that? Anyway, that is neither here nor there. Here is what I have for my level 1 thing. So I basically just did a scratch built, but with kind of off the shelf stuff, because I tried to keep it semi-realistic. So a 2-inch lock tube with lock nose cone and a 29mm motor tube, 18-inch top flight chute, 3 yards of 1/8-inch Kevlar, a like 1 foot by 1 foot 1/8-inch light ply from like Michaels, and an H135 DMS. It's like a realistic scratch build, so it's like off the shelf components, except for like the fins and rings. I feel like anyone that has, I'm assuming they have a Dremel, and if not, they could go to Harbor Freight and get one for $25. Anyone can cut light ply. That's not very hard. It's not like trying to table saw something or whatever. So anyway, all of that comes to $92.40.
9240.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It was hard to get it the price. Like I was looking at what kits cost these days, and like the cheapest, like the most affordable level 1 kit that what you won't just immediately lose is in the like probably $75.
Yeah, I may have a problem on that front, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
So I chose 2-inch because I think that's sort of the smallest that you could like still track visually. Like I did my level 1 with a PML AMRAM 2, and it went high, but like you can see it. If you did like a Lock Weasel or what's the Aura or whatever, like it's just gonna disappear.
You won't necessarily lose it. Remember all those college kids that flew like 1.6-inch rockets on Ace Motors at Midwest Power? Not this
That was
year, last
crazy.
year, and they all found them. All right, well, it's interesting to go to the scratch building thing. I feel like a lot of people are kind of afraid of cutting fin slots and like situating centering rings and fins. So I kind of started going down that path as well, but like with off-the-shelf centering rings, and that just puts it right over the top. But you definitely can buy enough plywood for like the cost of a single centering ring to make everything.
I was thinking, like on a 2-inch rocket, surface mount's not really out of the question. So I figured it's basically like building a
huge Estes
rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is doable.
All right, yeah. That's
kind of terrifying.
So
but...
I was trying to be realistic in the scratch build and not be like, well, you could make a nose cone out of an Easter egg. Like, try to make it something that someone could actually do without, as someone that's newer to the hobby possibly, and still figure out.
I feel like somebody with like the modeling experience and know-how and just like the readiness to make their own. I'm starting that over. I feel like somebody that has the experience and know how to make their own nose cone is like not going to ask us for if they're that dedicated to building the whole rocket themselves, they're not going to take the time to ask anybody's opinion about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to do it. So I kind of excluded that option as well. It's like just advising somebody to build a rocket with fully scratch build supplies is kind of a moot point. You want to go, Postart?
Yeah, I suppose. To go along with what I did for the level 3 one, I decided to stick with lock because it makes it easier coming with the parachute and everything. And I thought about I really wanted to go with a 3-inch, which kind of left me with only one option. So I went with the Onyx, the 3-inch Onyx. It kind of
I just
works
love
out
that
anyway.
rocket in general.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've really been into short, stubby rockets lately, and so that kind of fit the bill for me. So yeah, 3-inch Onyx, and then I did go with a reload, which is kind of necessary with the cost of that kit, but I went with an H128.
The classic.
Yeah.
If it wasn't an H123 back in the day, it was certainly an H128 or an H180 if you were feeling spicy. Yeah, I like the Onyx a lot. I kind of just want one. So yeah. I agree that it's like a good... it is just very small, to Taylor's point, of it having serious potential to get lost.
It's at least draggier, I mean, at 3-inch, but it's still going to go really high.
I see. That's the thing, though, is I feel like we've become a little jaded with like tracking, because I used to fly my Aerotech Mustangs on G64s all the time and just get them back pretty routinely. I never lost one.
That's pretty high.
Yeah, it's like 3,500 feet.
Yeah.
So but I mean, yeah, like my dad flies his little 2-inch rocket on H195s to like 5,000 feet and gets it back every time.
Yeah.
So
visually?
Yeah. I was like, do you want to put the tracker in this last time? And he was like, no, I'm good. And then it hit the pad it took off from.
Oh, but you're also out west. You could probably track a little bit better.
Yeah, we got that nice thin sea and air out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
We got that hazy air, that thick air.
And because of that, are you guys ready for my level ones? I got a little bonkers with it, I feel like, but it's kind of a swaggy level one. Like if you really want to be about it. It is the Lock Precision Park Flyer Black Brant 10 or Black Brant X, however you want to pronounce that. But they have it on their website, the RockSim files. On H128, it says like 3,700 feet, which, like we just discussed, is kind of right about the limit of being able to get it back. But the kit is $50. So you can pick your poison of any 29 180, 29 240, or DMS H motor. And it's all going to go, probably 35 to 5,000 range, which is a little treacherous. But like, if you want to ball like that, you should ball like that.
I guess.
I don't know if I would recommend that though.
I feel like
it's about 50-50 losing it though. If for someone that's not ready for that,
no way, dude. You get the right, you just write down on the card that you know it's going to go high and you need some assistance with the tracking, and people will get you. It'll be all right. Especially if you fly at like a lake bed, or if you got grass and trees and stuff, I fully retract this recommendation. Keep it
that's
as
what I
low
was
as
picturing.
possible. I was gonna say if you fly near grass and trees, like wait a few weeks, save up another $50 and buy a 4-inch kit, because this is not a game you want to play in that scenario.
In my head, I was thinking about like when Matt went to his first high power launch, or even when he put the i600 in his Mystic Buzz, and like he was so new he couldn't visualize like how high it was gonna go.
Yeah,
and
he was
just super overwhelmed, and basically was like ready to lose it because it went so high.
Yeah, the Mystic Buzz was truly mystifying to him. But I kind of like in making that recommendation, because I remember that was like when he was first learning, rocket terminology, and Tim gave him the i600 and he was like, fly this. And Matt was like, is this a full eye? And Tim's like, that is a full eye. And he was like, yeah. He was so pumped about it. And he did not realize the implications of what he was about to do.
Yeah,
and I don't think even I was ready for it.
Full eye. It did go quite a bit higher than even I thought.
Yeah, it was.
Luckily, I was in
like,
the field when it came down.
Right, it's a super light, all cardboard rocket. And then he was prepared for it with his level 2 flight, and then the K-185 did the same thing again to him. He's like, "Wow, that's high." I was like, "Yeah, it is. That sure is high." All right, have fun. At least he had a tracker in it that time. The RDF one, not the GPS. His GPS tracker was not worth noting. But yeah, there's there's a million different ways to skin the level 1 cat, I guess you could say. But that's if I was gonna try and recommend somebody do it on the cheap, $100 or less, that was my recommendation. Just absolutely go for it. But if you can, one little tip that's like an aside here, go to like a local vinyl sign shop, because almost all vinyl rolls are the same and they are almost perfect for 3-inch high power rocketry components. So if you can get a big piece of tube for free and then just buy nose cones and centering ring and recovery gear, like Taylor's recommendation, then it becomes a lot cheaper, because tubes are actually quite expensive these days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna add that. So if I want to make a recommendation that's not my scratch built way, I think I would go with a Lock Nuke Pro Max for $78.
Yeah, but that doesn't include the motor.
I know. I'm just saying this is not. It's not my entry into it.
The making it sub $100 thing was actually way more difficult than I thought it was going to be when I initially pitched the idea. Because in my head, you could still get small kits for no money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I was adding it
I
up.
think-
I was like, is Braden really pulling this in for 80? So I was like cost cutting a bunch of stuff. And I was like, damn, this is
yeah,
crazy.
I was like, this will be a fun idea, and accidentally made it super challenging.
Mhm.
But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to do your level 1 on the low, that is our recommendation. Now, does anybody want to, while we have some time here before we get to the mailbags, anybody want to update anybody on projects? I'm asking Taylor, basically.
I was sick all the past week, so there has been. I actually had plans to go out in the garage and do rocket stuff, but instead I was on the couch watching YouTube.
Nice.
Yeah.
What were you going to do?
I was going to try to do something on the Hercules. I don't really know what the next step is
Yeah.
right now, but
Cry.
yeah. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with the fins. If I'm going to give up on the profiling, scale profiling, or just do them like not scale on the
You made the
sustainer.
hot wire cutter.
I know.
You
And I
gotta
spent
do
forever
it.
trying to get the cores to not be potato chips, but
What can you do?
I
Basically,
need a
I've just
bunch of really
leveraged.
long like triangles to make the framework, and I'm like don't know how to. I guess maybe the answer is to go get something that will be easier to cut, like basswood, and make it out of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm making,
Yeah.
I need to make like the skeleton that I can follow the hot wire with. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mhm.
It just kind of needs to be more pliable.
Because I have 16th inch ply, and it's just it's too strong to cut with a knife.
It's just built different, bro. You don't understand.
Oh, I
Really
watched
is.
the Joe Barnard video where he's like, I can do this because I'm built different.
Oh yeah.
Where he's using the blue tape.
Yeah.
When I was running out of stuff to watch on YouTube when I was sick, so I was like, I'm gonna watch some Joe Barnard.
There you go. But yeah, basically, I decided to throw this segment in to try and convince you guys to work on stuff. Because Shane, would you like to update the people on how your level 3 build is coming?
Oh, it I think one part has moved. That's
Mhm.
about it. But
Wouldn't you move?
well, I took a picture of the fins so I could work on
Look at 'em?
some CAD stuff.
To look
Oh.
at it. Yeah, to his credit, he did actually help me with what I'm working on, so he did technically do some rocket stuff. I'll just say it on the podcast because we're already 20 minutes deep, and by the time this episode comes out, as long as everything went well, the rocket should have flown already, but I'm working on my sub-minimum. I hate that term. I get where it comes from, but like anyway, it's a K455 TMS motor with Wildman Mach 2 fins glued to it.
I don't know. We should just call it like bare
Flying
motor minimum
case.
diameter.
Yeah, flying case is what it is. Because
Mhm.
minimum diameter is kind of implying that in
The minimum?
specifically the context of the rocket being separate from the motor, then yes. By having the motor fit directly into the rocket itself is minimum diameter. But I don't think sub minimum is oxymoronic. That's not actually a thing. And a true minimum diameter rocket would be what I wanted to do, which was make like a interface so that I could use coupler for the airframe so that the rocket would all be the exact same diameter as the motor. Then it really would be the absolute minimum diameter that it could be. I guess that's probably not even true. But I feel like adding a transition is, I don't know. There's a bunch of semantics, but for some reason in particular, a flying case being called sub-minimum just doesn't do it for me. But I actually have to go do the fillets on that thing after this podcast, so somehow I'm afraid they're not big enough, but I guess there's only one way to find out.
Are you JB welding it?
Yes, sir. The whole thing.
I think it'll be fine.
I think so too.
How are you
Yeah.
attaching the? Are you just gluing the tube on top of the motor?
Yeah, with JB Weld. What else would I use?
What- 1/8-inch fins.
Yeah. Tagged or bonded to the case with JB Weld and then JB Weld filleted. I have to
Big
say
fillets?
the fins, yeah, I mean pretty big. Not as big as my last 54 minimum diameter.
Oh, those were
But-
monsters.
Yeah, I don't really think it needs to be that crazy, right? Which is funny that I've come to that conclusion because that flight was going like Mach 1.2 and this one's supposed to go Mach 1.7. I kind of forgot how gnarly the K455 is on startup. It's like 300 pounds
Yeah,
initial. So, and then
yeah. It's like a K1100, except it just sustains for 4 more seconds.
Yeah, so it's Mach 1.7 max velocity, but like over Mach for a really long time. So as long as it makes it through the transition, it should be fine.
But it's Braden trying to go over 15,000 feet. So what's gonna happen?
Over 20. Over 20.
Oh well, true.
Yeah.
So even more pressure.
Right, yeah. If for past 15,000, each extra 1,000 feet is like a multiplying issue. It's a compounding risk addition.
What
Because
are your
I had
electronics?
RRC2 Plus, and that's it. What it's fine, dude. It'll be
This is probably
completely
simple
fine.
enough. Everything will just work.
It's literally the JB Weld rocket from last time, but bigger and like a lot less airframe. The fins are just glued straight to the case. And Steve Heller, he was like, JB Weld is like God tier. He's like, that's not going to be a problem at all.
I love JB Weld. People just get so worked up over it, but
Yeah, it was funny too because he was like, "Yeah, just build it right and like degas the epoxy." I was like, "Right, yeah, see, there, you lost me." I have not, unfortunately, thrown the JB Weld in a vacuum chamber before I applied it, so guess we'll see. I'm not that worried about it though. I think it's gonna
What?
be just
You don't-
fine.
You don't put your JB Weld in your vacuum chamber that you use all the time.
It was really funny too because when we did the Arcus, Bryce potted the all thread that we put in to retain the motor into the rocket in just BSI 5-minute epoxy, and he measured it with a scale, which I actually admittedly started doing too because it like makes the cure time very authentically 5 minutes. But he mixed it up in a Dixie cup and then ran to the other side of the shop and put it in the vacuum chamber and vacuumed the Bob Smith epoxy before he poured it around the all thread. I was like, all right, well, I mean, yeah, I guess really do it if you're gonna do it. I just thought it was funny to like degas Bob Smith 5-minute epoxy.
I'm trying to imagine 5-minute epoxy that's not just filled with air bubbles.
Yeah, it looked really nice. There was so much air in it though that it just like exploded out of the top of the Dixie cup when it was in the vacuum bowl.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that said and done, we're going to go ahead and move on to the mailbag segment. For those of you unaware, we have a mailbag segment where we take comments and questions and everything from people on patreon.com/rocketvlogs. So if you want to make your voice heard or your question get answered, check it out. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/rocketvlogs.
What's our first question?
Well, okay, so this one I'm going to go ahead and start it, but it's a discussion about scratch building versus kit building and what you prefer, which I feel like we could basically make an entire episode. But the whole reason I'm bringing this up specifically, he said he used a scratch built rocket for his level 1. He's currently building a scratch level 3 rocket. At the end, though, it says, also, should I build a Macho Matt themed rocket?
Yes.
And I think this is the
Yeah.
important question that needs answered.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think you should.
that would be amazing.
It really would be.
Where's he
amazing.
from?
I don't know. That's UPS Rocket Man.
If he could come to Airfest and Matt
I
could see
Dude,
it.
yeah. And there's no way
Matt would
Matt's
be
going to see
thrilled.
this. Yeah, so you got to, if he did a Macho Matt themed rocket, You gotta like
He-
put some Worlds of Fun stuff on there, and he would go ballistic and like a Braum sticker. He would love it.
Yeah.
13's
French fry
about
parachute.
13.
Yeah, that would be good, dude. We need to get Matt a Blackhawk 13. We need to track one of those down.
Mm.
It'd be so funny. Then I guess nobody ever made that, huh? Well, not a kid. I remember somebody trying to make one themselves, but so anyway, we're gonna move on to Bob Green, who asked across a few questions, why or why not build a level 2 capable rocket as your level 1, and should you use your level 1 rocket for your level 2 certification? And there was one more on the same, so pros and cons of designing your own rocket for level 1 and level 2. We kind of discussed already the kit versus designing your own rocket thing. I mean, I used to just sit on Roxim for like hours and whip up my own stuff and just kind of get crazy with it. If that's what you like to do, then absolutely do it for your certification. The only con is that it's going to take more time to really put together everything than just building a kit. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. If that's the way you want to do it, then that's the way you want to do it. But I don't know. I've never been one to like make a recommendation on how to get through the certification process or how fast you should do it versus how slow or whatever. And I mean, Taylor and I had flown high power before we were 18. He did all 3 of his certs in one weekend, and I was level 2 for like 8 years. So it doesn't, in my opinion, really matter that much. We do see a lot of people that run through the certification process and then kind of just leave the hobby because they get bored with it.
But at the same time, those people, I feel like it's they kind of end up making it their goal. Like they see certifications as their goal, and I think they run through it, and then that's like the fire dies out. So I don't really see that as a bad thing because that's sort of like what they're getting out of it in a way. So
Right.
Okay, they don't have longevity in the hobby to like be in it long enough to like give back or anything, I guess, but I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. It's more just like whatever you're trying to accomplish, like take that route.
Right. It's a weird thing too to see people like get upset about it, where they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you haven't been level 2. You have so much more stuff to do in level 2, buddy. You ain't even be thinking about level 3 yet." It's like, why
Mhm.
does that bother you so
There's
much?
a lot
Yeah.
of like putting someone down to raise you up type of thing, I feel like.
It's funny too because like, I mean, if it's an interesting thing to like be passive aggressive about it, to be like, no, we need to keep people in the hobby for a long time. It's like, you're
Yeah.
stupid for thinking you need to do your level 3 right now.
And
We need to
Yeah.
have
like
you around for years.
it's not like it's not something to be like insecure about either. It's not like a level 3 person's better than a level 1 person. It's just like whatever you like. There's different reasons. Like there's plenty of reasons to stop at level 2 because that's like the perfect price to excitement ratio or whatever, or like whatever you can afford to fly. Like
Yeah.
I don't really see the need to have a merit badge if you're not gonna fly that. Like the
Yeah. And that isn't, yeah, that's the thing too, is that people, I mean, you're not going to use it, that's fine, but there's also those people that are like, I can't do level 3 because like it's too expensive, and I get that, but when they're like flying L motors all the time, I'm like, just like, because you're level 3 doesn't mean you have to fly an M motor every time you go to a rocket launch, or even ever again if you don't want to.
yeah.
I just flew a G138 and it was awesome and it made me happy. So it's there's just like a lot of weird like discussion and like gatekeeping around certification levels. It's just really bizarre.
And
Yeah.
it's like if you're not gonna fly like an M motor past your certification, why not just stay level 2 and fly a 4-grain L once in a while? Because it's like literally the same thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't say M, so you're not part of the elite club.
I know.
But yeah, so anyways, to circle back to actually answer that question, I do whatever you want for your certifications. Moreover, I guess whatever the person who's going to sign your paperwork is going to allow you to do. But if you like financially are restricted to the point of only being able to build one rocket, which is where a lot of my thinking comes from because I grew up without a lot of money, this is a very efficient way to do it. Do your level 1 and 2 with one rocket. There was one guy from Tripoli, Idaho, who did a Vulcanite H-76 or whatever they're called. He did his level 1 and level 2 with it. So he's putting like 6 grain J motors in this tiny rocket.
I've also seen, I used to see this more probably, but there's lots of people where they show up and they're so excited, excited to do their level 1 cert, and they do it and they have this rocket and they're like, wait, what do I have to do level 2? And then someone tells them like, well, you guys have to take this written test and then fly that. And they're like, well, can I put a J motor in this rocket? And they're like, I mean, technically. And they're like so stoked on it, they just use whatever, their PML IO or whatever. That's something that's like kind of small for level 2, but would like work technically, and they just go for it, and it goes like 5,000 feet.
Yeah,
I used to see that a lot. Yeah, it's sick.
I used the same rocket for my level 1 and level 2, and that rocket is now on like, I think 9 or 10 flights. I don't remember exactly, but 9 or 10.
Yeah, with H through J spanning its life. So yeah, I mean, it's totally doable. I do love the spirit of that too, but it's also funny like that people also kind of tend to not recommend that. They're like, well, you get more building experience out of building another rocket, but it's like, and then they'll also be the same people to be like, well, keep it simple. Don't do a 54mm motor. Just fly a J350 and get your cert.
Motor employee, you don't make it too complicated.
God, dude, that's another thing that drives me crazy. It's like, no, it's do whatever you want. Like, properly understand how everything's working as best you can and ask questions where you need help. But, like, don't let other people deter you from flying what you want to fly. That's what it is. My favorite story to tell in regards to that is, when was LDRS in Texas where Jarvis did his level 3?
Well,
like 2003, 2002.
The second time was 2006.
Oh, that might have been it.
Yeah, I think that was because it would have been with the N4000.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, nobody was doing crazy stuff like that regularly, like, period. And Jim Jarvis made his own carbon tube and like fully scratch built this 4-inch carbon fiber rocket and put an N4000 in it, and it went like 40,000 feet for his level 3. And like, that's crazy, but if you've seen the stuff that Jim Jarvis flies, that's kind of tame comparatively. So like, if that's what you want to do with rocketry, it's really questionable for me, or in my mind, for people to try and shut that down if that's what you're going to do for a cert. But I know not a lot of people. I know of a couple people that have been shut down with like minimum diameter cert pitches in recent years as well. But we did just see one of 5 grain 75M minimum diameter at Balls, which was super cool. And he got his cert because that's the kind of rocketry he does. And he had done stuff like that before. Like, so yeah. Again, I guess the whole point of this almost answer to your question, Bob Green, is do whatever you want. We'll just reiterate that. Talk to your certifying body, explain what you would like to do if it's sort of out of the norm, which I wouldn't say that flying the same rocket for level 1 and level 2 is out of the norm, but yeah, just make sure everyone's cool with it. And if they're not, to the point that it's like prohibitive beyond reason, I'd say find somewhere else to fly it. Let the creative freedoms flow, man. You know? Okay. What were you saying, Taylor?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Nothing.
Eric Beaver says, so I'm going to level 2 with a Wildman Mach 2 on a J275. Perfect. Stupid, I know. No, not stupid, but I just love the way that the rocket looks, and if you're going to do something, why not go all the way? Exactly. See, this guy gets it. I'm using RSC-2L and the 54mm missile works sled. I drilled myself 3 1/8 vent holes, but oversized 1 to 5/16 plus a little bit. I had to do this because the rotary switch needed a bigger flat screwdriver to turn it on and off, so I am overvented. Could this be a problem? Is too much venting bad? I hope not, but I have time to eliminate a vent hole or 2 or fill 2 of them and downsize 2 vents to 1/16 inch. My brain hurts. No, like there is, especially because it's a 4-fin rocket and it sounds like you have 4 holes. There are people that have said having 4 holes in electronics bay like wind will blow through it and trip the barometer, and it'll fire charge sitting on the pad. If you were watching the video and you saw the look on Taylor's face, that would perfectly describe exactly how we react to that thinking. I don't honestly believe that has ever actually happened.
Well, I think with old electronics and giant vent holes, yes. But
yeah,
with modern
in a
electronics
modern
and properly
setting,
sized and properly sized vent holes, no.
So basically what we're saying is you're good. If you look at any of my rockets, they usually shout out to Vern Knowles, vernk.net, for the altimeter port sizing chart that I've been using since I was like 10. But I will usually go like a 1/16 of an inch over the recommended size, and then most of my rockets also have an extra big hole just for the switch wires to hang out. So yeah, don't be too concerned about that. And then he says, the AvBay does not have enough room for another battery and a GPS tracking board. I cannot find radio tracking stuff anyway, so I bought the simple GPS tracker from Apogee. I'm going to attach it to a BT55 AvBay to the shock cord in the main airframe, drogue, shoot, and put the GPS in there. I think this is a good idea, but my good ideas are usually terribly bad ideas. See any issues? Just make sure inside that the GPS is sufficiently attached to something, and so is the battery. As long as it's not just flopping around inside your little AvBay that's attached to the shock cord, I don't see it being an issue. Yeah, the radio tracking transmitters aren't really an issue right now, but receivers are, because the comm spec stuff is gone. And I mean, there's a few options out there. LL Electronics, where we get our transmitters, does make receivers, but they're quite expensive. There is a Locator. It's a ComSpec receiver that was like designed for tracking your cat, and they made collars that had the transmitter on them. But it is apparently on like the 216 or 215 megahertz band. But you could buy that. It's on eBay right now for $179 and has been for like months and months. And LL Electronics can program a transmitter to any signal. It's just a matter of knowing what signals you got to shoot for. But yeah, it's a whole thing right now with radio tracking, which is unfortunate because it's been good to us for a long time. Our boy Sleepy Sack is back once again.
Sleepy Sack.
He's here, folks. He asks, why do you mostly go for Aerotech motors over CTI? Does it come down to availability or preference? Yeah, I mean, it really is in a lot of ways for me just about availability, because I feel like if I had CTI stuff readily available to me, it used to be that Aerotech stuff was like a lot cheaper. But I think it's pretty par for the course from each side at this point, pricing wise. I like a lot of CTI motors. Like the K740 C-Star is one of my favorite K motors ever. But getting your hands on them is a problem right now. And then, as far as I understand, people who have been having issues with them have been having no luck getting a warranty situation figured out if they have a Kato or whatever. So that's also looming in the back of my mind. I actually have two kind of gnarly CTI motors hanging out and ready. Gnarly in their own regard anyway. The M1675 pink and a K300. The K300 is really the one to be concerned about. But yeah, so like that's definitely going to be at the back of my mind when I load those things up. If this blows up, like I'm pretty much agreeing that I'll never get a warranty replacement out of it.
Yeah, I love CTI, White Thunder, and C-Star. And if I could readily get like Pro 38 3-grain I345 White Thunders, I would fly those because that motor's sick. And the 5-grain I540, which me and Shane got to fly some old ones last year. Those were sick. And like the J145 long burn skid mark in the Pro 54 2-grain. And then I like just a lot of the 75 millimeter CTI stuff. It fits in the Aerotech cases, and there's a lot of really cool thrust profiles, like
M1830.
M1830, L2375 White Thunder for the 4-grain case.
Those
Goes way too hard.
M3700s. You love those.
Yeah.
Oh, Nigel's
Nigel.
back.
Yep.
The Anti-Gravity
Welcome,
Group
Nigel, to the
podcast cat. He's back, folks. But yeah, I mean, that's really
he
the
loves
big
CTI motors.
That is really the big selling point in buying CTI stuff on a bigger scale, is that most of the 98 and 75 stuff crossloads. Unfortunately, the big nozzle CTI 98 stuff does not, and I want to fly an N5600 and like an M4770 and all these motors that even if I could get my hands on them, I don't have the hardware for it. So like I probably wouldn't buy them. But yeah, the N5600 was really high on your list for your 5-inch Punisher, wasn't it, Taylor?
It was, yeah. If I could get one,
I
would still consider it. I
think
mean, like
you
if I
can.
could get one and I had the money, not like
Right.
I'm like
I
if
was
one
gonna say,
shows
I'm-
up, I'm gonna drop money for it.
Yeah.
But if like they were readily available, I would consider it.
Yeah, that's kind of like me with the N1560, where like I had
Like-
this whole rocket planned, and then when it got real and someone was like, "Well, we have one. Do you want it? It's $1,600." I was like, no.
Yeah, if it were 2016 and everyone was flying CTI at every launch, and I could easily borrow a case and everyone had one in stock, yes, I would. But since that's not the case, no, I'm not going to.
Yeah,
I'll
it
fly
is.
it in 2000 instead.
Like 2014 was like the heyday. 2013 and
Yeah.
14. I mean, every level 3 was an M2250. Like,
Crazy. Everyone sold all their Aerotech stuff and then
Yeah.
like recently bought it all back.
Postart, what are you weighing on this situation with?
I mean, I have 3 CTI cases that I have not flown at all. I would definitely
Oh,
like
yeah.
to.
You have the full 54 set.
Yeah.
You should fly a K740. Tim
Yeah.
had one. He had 2 in the trailer at Midwest Power.
Yeah.
Jackie's like,
But-
you want it? I was like, want it? Yes. Do I have money for it? No.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of supply chain issues for one, and then like you were saying about warranty stuff with recent batches kind of makes me a little iffy on things.
If you're consistently watching my channel, though, you are going to see a slight shift in manufacturers of the motors that get flown quite a bit here shortly, because I'm probably going to be flying quite a bit of AMW stuff in the near future, which is sad because, you know, once it's gone forever. But it's a lot cooler than it just sitting and not getting burned. That is a weird thing to me that people like collect old rocket motors and don't fire them.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I have this I-65 from 1997. Cool, you gonna fly it? No, I just like having it.
Yeah, it's like when I bought a dozen F-62 Dark Stars and just used them all. I still have one left, so I'm waiting for a special day for that. But
So we're gonna bounce back here to Bob Green. He asks, should you gain experience with dual deployment on cheaper F or G rockets before doing dual deploy on high power?
I don't think so.
No, I would say the bigger rocket diameter you can start with building electronics bay, the better.
Yeah.
To a
I
certain
think
extent,
3-inch
obviously.
is a good
Yeah.
starting point, honestly.
3 to 4, I would highly recommend. 4 is a great butter zone because almost every person's hand will fit through that coupler pretty easily. And that goes a long way. But flying a F or G motor with dual deploy, if you're flying in a 3 or 4 inch rocket, is going to go so low that it's not even worth having dual deploy. And then if you're making it small enough to the point that it's going to be beneficial to have dual deploy, getting the electronics base situated on that small of a scale is not easy. It might frustrate you beyond the point of wanting to even try anymore.
What else do we
Alright.
got?
Looking.
I used to really want to do a dual deploy like Aerotech Aero, like a stock one. but it was just like, one, I never ended up getting an arrow, and two, like trying to fit electronics, and that was before tiny electronics were readily available. So it'd be like stuffing a perfect flight with a 9-volt in there, and that's taking up a lot of room and adding a lot of weight. Just not worth it. I do kind of like the idea though, still, of like a G motor dual deploy rocket where it goes high enough to actually need it, but not enough to do it. Just enough to think about it. Everyone's using shoot releases, so
Dude, the shoot release honestly is a game changer. I'm back on
It
board
is.
because mine worked this last launch.
I'm as soon as I buy one, I'm going to be fully on board. It's just, one, I'm bitter because I don't have one, and two, it wasn't around when I really needed it as a poor young person. So, a little
Yeah,
bitter about it, but it is a great thing.
It
And
is.
I have rockets now that really could use it. So
It is almost prohibitively expensive though. It's like $130, and I'm like,
Mhm.
that's almost 3 RRC2s. Like,
remember when I bought one and then lost it immediately?
yeah, I do.
That was
Remember
fun.
when I loaned one to Matt and it just killed itself?
Yeah, but you kind of forced Matt into using it almost.
Yeah, and so that's why I felt bad when he was like, no, I'll buy another one. I was like, you didn't even ask to borrow it. I was like, use this, it's cool. And then it just completely fell apart. Okay, so pros and cons of injecting epoxy versus letting the rear motor or letting the rear centering ring be removable to reach in and do internals. Honestly, if I'm not going to do injected fillets, I'm probably going to build it with the whole fin can assembly out of the rocket, because I am not a big fan of the reaching in through the back fillet method.
I like doing that on if it's a smaller rocket where there's enough room to do it.
Yeah, it's just it
Or
worked
like a
really well
Nike
on the V2 because the V2 was a huge boat tail and I could just reach in through the front of it, but I did it on the Journey 75 for the Wildman instructions because that's how Tim wanted it done, and like that wouldn't have been my choice. If I was just building it the way I would build it, it wouldn't have had internal fillets at all. But
like a Nike Smoke. Well, because now with the lock instructions, this doesn't have anything to do with Nike Smoke. Like the way lock instructions are now, everything that lock together thing, they kind of make it so everything slides in and it'll cover the slots or whatever. And so I see a lot of people where that's kind of like the standard way a lot of people build now again, and so, which is fine. But there's certain rockets where if you take that and try to use it on something else, I think it's kind of stupid. Like if you try to build something where the fins are way up from the back of the rocket, like a Nike Smoke, and you try to build that, slot those all the way back, then you have these huge like open slots you got to deal with, which can be done, but like there's usually with a Nike Smoke or something, there's usually not like your motor mount's not going to be fill up you're not going to do a minimum diameter Nike Smoke usually. I mean, there's cases where you would, but like a 5.5 with a 2 or 3 inch motor tube, there's enough room to pull that back ring off and get some epoxy up in there. So that's what I would do on that. But yeah, and then if there's not room to do that, or like if I'm not going to remove the whole fin can and I'm not going to do it that way, I would still not inject. I would just not do internals.
yeah,
which I've done a lot and like have not had any problems. So
it feels like it's like a newer rocketry development that internal fillets are thought to be a requirement, because like a lot of rockets I built when I was younger and a lot of stuff that I build currently I wouldn't have put internals on when I was younger. And I think my lock iris kind of proved, and in a way my glass one too, that the internal fillets aren't helping you a lot. You know what I mean? They are going to be way more beneficial for you on landing than they are going to be in flight in most cases, I think. And all the internal fillets have done in my rockets that now have broken fins is made it impossible to get the fins out to fix them. So now I have to cut big holes in the airframes and like bend them to get them out. Whereas instead I could have just, on a rocket that popped the fillet before, just yank it out and try again. And yeah, smaller stuff, I internal fillets are, in my opinion, a thing of the past. And I think a lot of that comes from, I mean, like, Steve and Manny from Evolution Space and Bryce have all flown rockets extremely fast, minimum diameter with no composite layup, like tip to tip or anything like that. And I'm just like, if you can do that, then what's the difference other than a benefit of it going through the wall of having that bonded joint being to your motor tube, and then you still have fillets just like any other rocket. The only thing that's going to hurt is if it hits the ground hard and breaks one out, but then you can just get it out.
I think the main advantage is going to be on landing, and in particular rockets where the motor tube is like you have a lot more going through the wall because you're kind of creating a leverage point at the body tube.
That
if
is
it's
true,
like
yeah.
Something where where the fin tab isn't very deep, like it doesn't. That's not really going to make much of a difference if you squirt a bunch of epoxy in there or not. If you do have like something that has a big difference between motor mount diameter and body tube diameter, you're creating a leverage point, and so you need a good bond one way or another. But it's like I've had good results using just a good high quality epoxy and getting a lot on the root, as opposed to like if you just relying on big fillets. So I don't know. There's cases where like a good internal joint is beneficial, but like how you achieve it can vary, I guess. You don't like internal fillets aren't a deal breaker necessarily, or like a make or break necessarily.
Right.
No
And that's,
intended.
I mean, 90% of the stuff I built when I was younger didn't have internal fillets. And
Yeah, same.
moving forward, a lot of the stuff I build also just won't. Your 4-inch Punisher doesn't have internals, right?
No, and it survived M3700 Kato, and it actually pressurized. Somehow the pressure leaked past the top ring, or maybe the slot went past the top ring on one of the fins. I don't know what happened, but it blew out the epoxy on the external fillet on one of the fins. Super gnarly, and the fins are rock solid still, but it just like
it's crazy.
Expanded the actual fin slot, like the tube.
You
away
should
from
do
the
a
fin.
video on that, because I feel like that.
Yeah.
I know what that looks like. That's probably hard for people to picture.
Yeah,
You should
it's
do.
pretty crazy. I was kind of waiting until I got the parts to fix it to do the whole thing, but
Oh yeah. But did you
and
order
I'm-
them?
No, because the nose cone's expensive.
There's
That's
one
what I
in
need.
my rocket room.
The 4-inch long
Yeah,
one.
the high temp long one. Yeah,
Oh, good for your minimum diameter rocket.
yeah, and it's actually going to be used for a different project now that I'll tell you about here in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like, my thoughts on epoxy and fillers and internal fillets is like amorphous. And if you ask me 2 weeks apart, you're probably going to get different answers. But yeah, so I've lately been kind of on the no tip to tip layup idea and kind of leaning into that. So that could make for some interesting projects in the near future.
I go back and forth on the tip to tip. You don't need it, but there's cases where I feel like doing tip to tip is going to be easier for me to just do that than like,
Well, yeah,
'cause you have-
my
you have to play
N1560
with
was a
fin
great
thickness
example.
and like
Yeah,
stuff like
My-
that.
the N1560, like going to 3/16 fins and doing no tip to tip is, I don't think, a problem for that rocket, because it's not even touching Mach 2. I think it does a little, but I mean that is really fast. But if you're careful and you bond everything properly, it's been proven that that's well beyond that speed is perfectly fine, as long as you have the good fin shape and they're properly adhered. But it actually sims higher if I do 1/8-inch fins and then add a 1/16th on each side for tip to tip consideration, and it actually weighs less. And that's kind of how I landed on that preference. But-
Yeah, it's like on the 3-inch minimum diameter rockets I've done. I did 1/8-inch with tip to tip carbon, as opposed to like if you buy like it's just straight 3/16s, which is like if you buy a Mach 3 from Tim, that's what it'll come with. But there's just so much drag and it's
Right.
overkill. You could probably get away with bare 1/8-inch on a 3-inch rocket, honestly.
I think Bryce did it with 4. I can't remember for sure. but I think he did
Damn.
1/8-inch fins on a 4-inch minimum diameter with no tip to tip.
So I kind of want to do that. Like, just
Yeah, see, I know.
Or
I want to learn the juju magic that I want to know. I want to figure it out. Well, I'll just ask. I'll ask Bryce and I'll ask Steve and then go from there. 'Cause I feel like a lot of it's technique and it's like something you kind of got to learn. So, time to start shredding some rockets. That's patreon.com/rocketvlogs.
first order of business, now that I don't have a job, gonna shred some rockets.
Let's destroy all of my electronics. Happy New Year, everyone.
I just don't want to keep losing motor cases. That's my thing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I've done that. I mean, it would be one thing if I had a lathe and I was making my own like research cases, but I'm not, and I don't really want to lose commercial cases.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to me that like all these college kids at FAR now are slinging L1000s around. So I'm like, that motor's so expensive. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess if you're just gonna glue fins and carbon to it, and there's a really good chance you'll never see it again, then like it's kind of worth the extra $100 over a L1090, so you're not slinging a $350 motor case into the abyss.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun to. That part does make the L1000 more fun.
Yeah, and the K455. I hope, like, if this rocket doesn't work that I'm building right now, I know there's going to be a lot of me that's like, we'll order one and try again because I have all these 54 pieces of glass sitting around. So what? Just do it again. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. That's patreon.com/rocketvlogs.
My plan for my next 3-inch minimum diameter rocket was 3/32 fins with tip to tip. But do you think that would be better than 1/8-inch?
I don't know.
It would be about the same thickness when it's all done, wouldn't it?
It's reminding me of my RAS Aero stuff with my end motor flight. Like there was like a 3-week period where there was like 2 hours a day I was just tweaking tiny little stuff in the design file and seeing what I could squeeze out of it.
But it makes a big difference in altitude, make it going with like thinner fins, even if it's by just a little bit.
And less fins. That's a hill that I will die on, and it's an interesting one. I would love to have somebody like way more qualified than us on aerodynamic stuff come chat with us on the podcast and like go in deep on the 3 versus 4 fin thing, because I've seen it now.
Yeah.
I've seen like 3 different N1560 or N1000 rockets with 3 fins fly perfectly straight.
I used to be totally against the 4 fin until I started flying minimum diameter rockets, and I just was like, oh man, if it just went a little bit straighter off the rail. And it's like, so I was convinced that I'm flying Moonburners too, which is a whole different deal, but like I feel like 4 fins helps in that case. But I see people getting straight shots though, so there's a lot of variables in there. If you have the right
20-foot tower.
Stuff, yeah, big tower. Like if you have wind or no wind, I kind of was just going for it either way. Like,
yeah, it was when you did the M1850. I mean, I know that's not Moonburner, but it was pretty windy that day. That thing weathercocked pretty hard.
It kicked over, and that one had 4 fins. That was the only one I built that had 4 fins.
Yeah, it is like it's a crazy thing, but like in my opinion, like the gamble, because I've seen 4 fin rockets kick sideways too. The gamble is worth it on the 3 fin versus 4 fin on a minimum diameter rocket, because in the simulation world, at least, it goes so much higher if you drop that 4th fin, which makes perfect sense, right? You're sacrificing a little bit of confidence in the stability for a lot less drag. And isn't that what we're all here for? A little bit of gambling in life.
Someone smarter than me would have to chime in, but perhaps stability at high altitude would be better with 4 fins.
See, that's what I'm talking about. We need to get like an actual like aerodynamic aerospace guy in here. Someone, if you're an aerospace engineer and you're like specifically in aerodynamics, shoot me a message to rocketvlogs911@gmail.com and come join us for a conversation. Make us all feel really dumb.
Why don't we just when are we gonna get Bryce on here?
I don't know. I asked him if he wanted to be on here. We were talking about building huge rockets for cheap, and I think just like an overall Bryce interview or like interviews with just rocket people in general would be super fun, where we just kind of sit here and bounce our 5 IQ questions off of them for an hour.
Well, it's like Bryce always seems like he's sitting in questions every week and stuff anyway.
Dude, I love it. He's a very active participant.
Yeah.
Hi, Bryce. Hi, Nicole. He, so anyway, we got one last question, and it is a little bit of a doozy. And I think this could also be a fun, like, deep episode topic where we, like, set a budget and plan this all out. But Dane Hawk, I think that's how you say your name, asks, if you were to build an ultimate rocketry workshop, what equipment and tools would you have? And I know we're already at an hour and we could definitely stretch this way out, but we'll try and keep it fairly concise. But I do want to revisit this for a whole episode. Like,
yeah,
if we got
I could talk about this for a while.
Yeah, we could really go in
especially
deep.
because I'm a tool nerd.
See, that's what I'm saying is I think it'd be really fun for us to just each bring a budget doesn't matter list of the tools we would have if we were just given a 10,000 square foot shop.
I mean, if he's asking for ultimate, I'm guessing it'd just be like, if we're going for heavy hitters, like a full CNC router.
Yeah.
A big, huge, awesome lathe.
You know what's really high on my list? A horizontal like gravity bandsaw, but a big capacity one, so you could cut like 10-inch tubes with the bandsaw.
Wow, I never thought about using one of those that would cut rocket tubes nicely.
Yeah, because Charles used to have.
I just think about it for metal stuff, but
right. Charles had one for for making exhaust manifolds. My friend Charles owns a fabrication shop, and I was always like, dude, can I put fiberglass tubes in there? He's like, I don't know what that's going to do to my blade, so no. But if I had one dedicated for it.
First thing I'm going with, big mixer.
Yeah, fair. That's
he's like, I'm not even making motors. I just want a big mixer.
Dude, yeah, we've really been on one with wanting to make propellant lately. So that's I respect that. I want 100 quart mixer. Like if money's no problem. I don't know if they make that. I know they make 80, right? But with like a gnarly vacuum pump and just like so you can mix completely under vacuum. Like all the way in on that. And I'm with you on the lathe because I don't want to touch machining graphite. I really don't, but I think it would be fun to like get raw aluminum and make motor cases and just have people who are actually experienced and have proper respiration equipment machine graphite. Shout out to Mike Fisher, Binder Design / Fisher Research Hardware.
I would do graphite outside.
Yeah. Yeah,
with a dedicated like mini lathe probably.
There is
you just wheel it outside and make a mess.
A facility that I've been in that manufactures graphite components, and the little room that they have this dedicated lathe for graphite in is like it's insane. It's just like all the walls, everything's covered in plastic. There's like a full ventilation system for it, and because it is gnarly. It'll kill electronics. It'll kill you.
It'll kill everything.
It's crazy that it's so applicable because it's kind of like the barium nitrate for green motors thing, right? Like, you know what works. It's just extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
But another thing that's on my list is a freestanding drill press. After all this I went through to finally get a tool stand for my drill press. This is my grandfather's drill press that I inherited when he died, and I love the drill press for that reason. And I'll keep it. We'll have it on the stand, but I also want like a huge one and like a freestanding like 9 or 11-inch bandsaw as well.
Yeah, same.
And a scroll saw. Like a scroll saw with the proper unidirectional blade, so you can just like freehand some crazy whatever you want, just like cutting fins, just like boop 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 boop. I guess if we had the CNC though, that's kind of unnecessary. Just
yeah.
for those days where you're really feeling doing it by hand, you know.
Big for the Dream Tools, like big sanding table,
Oh yeah,
like
Yeah.
a cabinet shop stuff.
parts washer, big on mine. I would just fill it
Mm.
with Zep citrus cleaner and throw motor cases in
Oh, that'd be sick.
it. And lately I've been thinking about a lot of filament winder because like
Mm.
as finicky as I think it would be to learn to figure it out, but how cool would it be to just be like, you know what, I just want this size tube, so I just have to get a mandrel situated and then I can make whatever I want.
I know, it just sounds like so tedious. You got to really want it. I'm like, I'll just roll one.
Oh yeah, actually now that since it's unlimited budget, I want a filament winder and someone who knows how to use it like on payroll 24/7 to just make me stuff. Someone that babysit me to make sure I'm using it properly at the very least. But dude, what about like a Haas like CNC lathe? You think you could just program that to like spit out motor cases?
Probably, yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
so crazy because again, back to Charles, he had it like set up where he fed it raw stock and it was manufacturing parts just like all the time. Like, you just have it like pooping out 54, 10, 50 cases constantly. Just huge batches of them. I do know they're like $150,000 though, so but no budget. But yeah, I think that could be a fun episode. Just like our dream shop. The shop is free, but we have to agree on like a tool budget and see who gets what, and then we can kind of all compare. I think it'd be really fun to like make a competition out of it where like we let the audience decide who did it best, and then whoever wins that like gets to pick the next concept like that or something like that. I think would be kind of fun. Like up next is a 50,000 foot flight with a budget of $2,000 or whatever. But yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But that is our very last question from the mailbag for this week. And wrapping up the mailbag section means we're wrapping up the podcast. So my name is Braden Carlson. You can find me on YouTube at Rocket Vlogs or on Instagram and X at BigB1011.
My name is Taylor Jesse, and you can find me on YouTube at the Rocket Channel.
And my name is Shane or Postart, and I'm on YouTube at Postart Propulsions.
We are the Anti-Gravity Group, and I said that wrong actually. No, did I say that right? I can't remember what way I say it now. Yeah, yeah. God.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what?
right.
It's all falling apart. We are the Anti-Gravity Group. This is the Anti-Gravity Group podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Peace.